Hi there, everyone. Hopefully you're doing well, and we got to take this thing out of preview mode and go back to live mode. So give me 1 second. Here we go. So good to see everybody, and happy Friday. I know generally I'm giving weekly updates and things like that, but this week has been a very wild time, and in a good way. It's actually been a wild time for the last 10 months. Um, but with that, I wanted to just use this time to actually answer a lot of questions that I've been getting direct message on across various platforms with the announcement of wellness for the workforce. So I'm just going to save this video and I'll probably pin it in my, especially LinkedIn profile. That's where I'm most active. And hopefully people like you can just watch this and get a lot of the answers that you're already asking me on a one-to-one basis, because I just don't have enough bandwidth to answer those questions. So instead, I'm going to utilize this in hopes that you'll watch that. So with that, how about I switch over and share with you a presentation that I take a lot of businesses through, because this will actually share exactly how it could be relative to either yourself as an employee or for the company that you work for. And then that way we can just kind of go from there. So let me, we're not going to show entire screen. We're going to do PowerPoint. Okay. And let's put that in presentation mode, shall we? Okay. So this is generally the way I start off a presentation with any of the companies that I talk to. And I know it's kind of crazy to say it, but the IRS actually does love small businesses. And I'm going to explain to you how that is actually feasible. But I always like to point out, the IRS loves small businesses etched on a tree. People just laugh. It's like, that's not true. Like, there's no way that's actually feasible. But realistically, it actually is true, and I can prove it. And I'm going to show you the facts that actually lead to why this is relative potentially for you as a business owner or for you as an employee of a business that could maybe improve upon the wellness benefits that they're already providing to their employees. And so this is all trying to better understand the US tax code and how the IRS actually wants you to use it, while also recognizing that the IRS is not going to put a sign out there that says, hey, free money, come and take it. So, quickly, what I'll just show you is like, what's the size of the prize really for companies out there? Why is the IRS actually giving billions of dollars away? What is the benefit for the employees and the employer? And then what are really kind of the next steps if people do want to jump into it? And so let's start first on a quick glance of what is the size of the prize. You see here for the employees that with a properly implemented program, you're going to see somewhere between $1,500 to $3,000 of a net pay increase. So that's after-tax income. That's pretty meaningful. On top of that, you're also getting additional benefits from a mental and physical wellness perspective. So when you combine those things, if you get financial wellness plus the physical and mental wellness, it's a really strong program, which is why 93% of employees opt into this. That's a crazy stat when you think about how all these other wellness programs out there are maybe averaging about a 30% utilization. For the employer, why this is really important for employers? Well, for one, they're saving about $500 to $600 a year per employee that is participating in the program. So again, your employees are getting paid more and you're getting paid more as a company. That sounds almost too good to be true. And this is why I need to better explain why the IRS is allowing for something like this. And then the third part is, and I kind of already mentioned it with the employee, but a 93% adoption rate in an industry that generally sees about a 30% adoption. That is why this is such a meaningful conversation for a lot of businesses out there and why we are uniquely positioned to talk about it. So the best part, of course, out of all this is it is 100% self-funded. That is meaningful for people because guess what? People don't have extra money just sitting around. They ideally want to be able to have something that is self-funded so they're not paying out of pocket for anything to be properly utilized. So that's kind of the quick thing at a glance. Now, here's the facts. And why I like to use facts is just recognizing that objectively looking at something is much better than formulating an opinion. And so objectively, fact one is small businesses dominate the U.S. workforce. And what I mean by that, I'll do the quick click here. You'll see that about 99.9%. So not 100%, but a big amount accommodates for less than 1,500 employees per year. So that's the American small businesses. And about 50% of the private sector workforce is employed by these small businesses. And I think the most compelling stat out of the 5 bullet points is that in the past 20 years, 20 million net new jobs have been produced out of these small employers. That's more than 60% growth rate. So it's not the big guys that are generating the jobs, it's the small guys. So that's kind of, and you can read on the screen the other facts tied to it. But that's fact one. Small businesses dominate the U.S. workforce. If the IRS really didn't like small business, our company would be in dire straits. So small businesses is the backbone of America. That's very important for us to take care of small business, actually. So fact two, healthy employees are healthy taxpayers. And you can see here the things that I clicked on. A lot of the companies I've talked to, gosh, I've probably talked to well over 200 companies now. A lot of the companies I've talked to has understood that Obamacare, or the Affordable Care Act, whatever you know it as, originally created in 2010, created affordable health insurance. It expanded Medicaid. It created a marketplace in each state to have health insurance available for the 1099s and whoever it might be out there. And it prevented insurance companies from denying coverage for pre-existing conditions. Those were the things that a lot of people knew about. What a lot of people don't know about is that final bullet point that I have there, innovative medical programs to lower healthcare costs. And I'm going to get back to how that is actually relevant for us. But just remember, outside of the 4 things that we all probably know about the Affordable Care Act, innovative medical programs is commonly misunderstood and is why we have this big opportunity here. So with that, let's move on to the next part. And of course, you guys already know this, but I've been working for P&G, Nike, all those companies. The big companies have had wellness programs in place for a while. In fact, when you look at a lot of companies, about 80% of them do have wellness programs in place, but it's not well understood and well implemented. So let's get into fact 3, though. COVID forced Congress to spend more money. Well, gosh, COVID was only a few years ago, and I think a lot of us remember some of these elements that the CARES Act provided, the coronavirus aid relief. $2.2 trillion was what was penciled in for the CARES Act. A lot of us know about $1.5 trillion, which is across the direct payment to the taxpayers, the unemployment benefits, bailing out industries such as the airlines, and then, of course, the federal aid to hospital and healthcare providers. So that's about $1.5 trillion. But what a lot of people don't know about or were unaware of is about the $680 billion sitting out there for the economic support for small businesses and the various tax incentives. That's a big number, $680 billion that a lot of us just weren't aware of. So you have fact number 2, where people aren't aware of the innovative medical programs that the Affordable Care Act established. And fact number 3, where people don't know about roughly $700 billion. And then fact number 1, where people think the IRS isn't on small businesses' side. So you have those 3 facts. That leads us to fact 4, which is probably the most important fact that I share with people. Chronic diseases may bankrupt Medicare and Medicaid. That's important to think about. Now, how do I know this? Well, just look at the stats. About 60% of Americans have a chronic disease. 60%. So only 40% of our population doesn't have a chronic disease. That's a horrible statistic. But what's even more horrible is looking at the numbers on chronic conditions and what makes it so frustrating. So if you just see the top 3 conditions that I'm talking about right now, heart disease, cancer, and diabetes, that's almost $900 billion a year it costs us. $900 billion, and those numbers are only going to grow. The other big thing, which is the bottom left part of the screen that you might see, chronic conditions are contributing to 90% of U.S. healthcare costs. That's $4.1 trillion a year. To put that in perspective for you, in 2023, our government increased its deficit by another $1.5 or $1.6 trillion. And so far through this year, we're at about $900 billion of an increase in the deficit. So if we're able to properly address chronic conditions so that they never get into a stage of being chronic by having good preventative healthcare systems in place, then if we're able to reduce 90% of that $4.1 trillion cost, I mean, I'm no extreme mathematician, but that sounds like we could potentially reduce $3.7 trillion in expenses a year just by having better preventative healthcare systems in place. If we're able to reduce that much, or let's just say we're only able to reduce $2 trillion of healthcare costs a year. Well, if we're increasing our deficit by 1.5 trillion a year, we're actually running at a surplus of $500 billion a year. That's pretty meaningful for a country that is in a significant amount of debt. So hopefully this fact right here will better explain to you of why the government would want these programs in place. It's not out of the kindness of their own heart, but by having preventative healthcare systems in place, we can actually reduce the deficit that we are increasing as a government in whole based on chronic conditions that could have been avoidable. All right, let's move on to fact 5. Current wellness programs have a low utilization. I've touched on this. You guys, probably have one of these insurance providers, and a lot of those insurance providers have wellness programs that add on top of their existing health plan. Some of them, they just call it like the Anthem Wellness Plan, but others have like Rally, Virgin Pulse, Personify. Those are add-ons on top of your existing health insurance. That is what wellness programs are. They don't replace it. They seamlessly augment on top of your health insurance coverage. But as you can see, the Gartner research has shown about 80% of organizations offer wellness programs. But the sad fact is only 30% of employees actually utilize that. That is horrific. 80%. So you know how frustrating that would be for an HR person to spend all that time getting a wellness program in place and having only 30% of your employees use that? Gosh, that's painful. But that is the fact of what the American marketplace looks like for companies. So let's go into fact 6. U.S. companies and the economy are struggling. And like when you look at it, the majority of the businesses that I've talked to, they say attracting talent or recruiting challenges. So that's one thing they have. Retaining the existing employees is another major challenge because everybody's looking for greener pasture, better benefits, better pay, etc. There's one stat out there that says about a person leads a company 90% of the time either for better benefits or more pay. I can't solve for everything, but if I can help you solve for 90%, I think that's pretty meaningful. And then the final challenge that a lot of companies are running into is, of course, revenue challenges or profit challenges. And so those 6 facts right there are the underlying theme behind what wellness for the workforce is. And so I'm just going to give you a quick idea again. Let's run through this. Fact 1, the U.S. actually cares about small businesses because it dominates the U.S. workforce, is a significant portion of our taxpayers, and is the backbone of our economy. That's fact 1. Fact 2, healthy employees are healthy taxpayers. Under the Affordable Care Act, we had established a lot of things. One of the things that people commonly forget is that it allowed for innovative medical programs. Fact 3, code forced Congress to spend more money. We knew about there's $2.2 trillion set aside. We were all pretty familiar about $1.5 trillion. A lot of us were not aware of the other $700 billion sitting on the side for people to utilize properly. Fact 4, chronic diseases may bankrupt Medicare and Medicaid. $4.1 trillion a year. 90% of that could have been avoidable if we just had good preventative healthcare systems in place. If we can reduce just even a half of that $4.1 trillion, our country is no longer running at a deficit of $1.5 trillion a year, but actually increasing its streams by about $500 billion a year. That's meaningful. Fact 5, current wellness programs have a low utilization. That's unfortunately a fact. It's terrible, and I feel bad for my HR friends because they put in so much work, but when 80% of companies offer wellness programs, but you only have 30% utilization, there must be something wrong. You have to find a way to motivate employees. The best way to motivate them is give them something that's meaningful to take advantage of in their wellness programs. In fact 6, the underlying challenges for every American business is recruiting talent, retaining talent, and increasing revenue or profits. Those are the 6 major facts. That's what we focus on at Wellness for the Workforce. So with that, what I try to just share people really fast is how we are specifically helping those companies accelerate their physical health, mental health, and financial health. And in particular, what is meaningful, again, for the employee out there? Access to 24/7 telehealth. If I take a step back, if there's one thing that COVID has done for all of us, it has made us more comfortable to utilize telehealth. So if you need your prescription filled, just hop on the app. If you want to have your telemedicine taken care of, you can do that. If you want online individual therapy, great. I mean, I will tell you, I went home for Easter earlier this year, and of course, my toddler decided to wake up and be sick. And I know no doctor was going to be available on the Saturday before Easter, especially out of state. But I had a doctor within 15 minutes on my app, and we were able to address everything from the comfort of my family's home. That's pretty meaningful. But say you have employees, everybody in this world wants customization and curation. And so now employees can actually, if they want to do a weight loss program, there's a program for that. If they want to stop smoking, there's a program for that. There are things available for every single employee based on their specific needs. It's not a one size fits all. And the most meaningful thing for them is that $1,500 to $3,000 annual tax benefit and access to a free financial advisor. Because guess what? Financial health is meaningful. Financial health causes a lot of stress that hurts you physically and mentally. And so we want to give people a free financial advisor to coach them through those moments of, hey, how do I plan for the longer term instead of just the immediate needs? And then for the employer and the human resources department, better recruiting, better retention, we touched on the prior ones, $500 to $600 annual tax benefit per employee. And for the human resources department, you're getting a 90+% adoption. It's really 93% when it's typically 30%. That's nuts. And so hopefully right there, that summary that I'm giving you right now, hopefully that gives you an idea of what it means for us as, wellness for the workforce. And if you're now watching this and you're like, oh, wow, this actually sounds reasonable and logical, great. If you still have more questions, though, please come and ask me. I'm always here. I'm pretty much, hopefully by now you understand, I'm an open book. But if you do have questions, you know where to find me. And as you can tell, I'm pretty passionate about this because, hey, if we can help more Americans live healthier and happier lives and wealthier lives, gosh, that's game changing. There's less suffering in the world. And for right now, the big challenge is just getting the good news out there. It's kind of like you're evangelizing it. But please, reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm always happy to talk about wellness for the workforce and how we can potentially help you as an employee, or if you're a business owner, how we can help you as an employer. But the best part about it, it's a win-win. So generally, people like win-win solutions. So hopefully that gives you a good explanation. Feel free to reach out to me. You know where to find me. Take care.